right, everyone, welcome to another awesome day of FileMaker Training. I'm Richard Carlton, creator of fmtraining.tv, where every day we're doing great FileMaker training. Today is a special day. Today kicks off day one of our 30-day, and I say that with quotes, because it's already scheduled to go over 30 days, but I'll just keep saying 30 days of training, in air quotes, a FileMaker for brand new beginning FileMaker people, or people who maybe don't do it professionally every day, because if you do it professionally every day, you should know everything I'm about to tell you. However, there are always some complications, some challenges. No matter what platform of software you use, no matter what kind of vehicle you drive, or what kind of house you have, or what city you live in, there's always kind of localized challenges. So we're going to spend some time talking about those as well. So real quick before we get going, I'm going to press the visit fmtraining.tv. If you come over to fmtraining.tv, you can see the upcoming broadcast schedule. For those of you who are current subscribers, we have sent you the access link so you can watch this on Zoom. If you have questions, in-flight questions, I'm asking you to ask questions, right? If you're worried that the question's off topic, I will, if it's sufficiently off in the weeds, or I'm gonna hit it, don't worry about it, right? If we have someone who has a very complicated question, we might ask you to unmute yourself and to give it to us on audio. And so this is all, while this training is free, all of you who have training subscriptions with RCC bundles right here, one of these training bundles, then not only do you get great training, but you're helping to support the channel. We greatly appreciate what you're doing. So real quick, let's talk about today and the upcoming schedule. We have a schedule that's kind of planned out. Every day is kind of set up. We have 30 days of this stuff. We did this last year. We were trying to say, well, we're going to teach you how to customize a CRM in 30 days. The problem was, for brand new beginners, that was just too much of a hill to get through. And so what we're doing is we're going to be talking about it. Our demos are going to all be fun demos. They're all from law enforcement. They're all from organized crime. These are demos. Some of these demos are legit real, right? In terms of the business situation. We're going to be talking about that. Some of them are a little contrived because I can't obviously show you law enforcement databases. And if I showed you the organized crime database, then while we're in here, we'd probably be in the middle of a shootout with the bad guys. And we don't want to do that. Use of firearms during live training is explicitly, I don't want to say prohibited, but discouraged, right? So that's important. So 30-day live training. So let's talk about this. So today is day one. We're going to talk about terminology. This first topic about what we're doing and the terminology surrounding it should be one of the simplest ones there are. However, the folks at Claris sometimes come up with ideas, and the ideas that they have are very difficult to train or instruct people on. I always talk to them and say, hey, this is going to be easy to instruct or train on. Sometimes the things that they come up with might sound good to them, but when you get out into the world that I live in, which is training all of you, I don't need confusion. So let's talk about this a little bit. So we got 30 days of training. This is all going to be recorded. You all will have access to the recordings. The recordings lag behind about 2 or 3 days behind. So day one will probably be available on Wednesday or Thursday this week, something like that. So let's talk about the platform. I'm not going to get into the changes in the platform per se. I'm just going to talk about the new platform as it's being solidified right now. So we'll talk about this, but let's say that the FileMaker platform is owned and operated at the end of the day by Apple Incorporated. Apple as in the iPhone company that makes all the great technology. FileMaker is localized in a number of languages worldwide, and half the time when we do these live streams, we have people in other parts of the world. I only speak English because I'm not very smart, so I only do one language. But there are many people in different languages who learn FileMaker, and it's localized for them. You can check FileMaker Claris Incorporated. Claris is the company. Claris International, I guess now. They make about 7 or 8 different localized versions: French, Italian, Chinese, Japanese, things like that. There's also this company called Winsoft International. They make the versions for the Czech versions, the Middle Eastern versions, some other versions that are out there. So that's the website for them. So let's just go through terminology, and I need you to stop if I am not super clear about something. Let's talk about, because it's as dumb as this is going to take at least a solid 30 minutes today. We may not go the full hour, okay? I will go until we're out, we're off, we're done with the topic, and all your questions that are on topic have been answered, okay? First off, the FileMaker platform is made by, we know loosely it's made by Apple. It's a department or division with Apple. Claris, one of the bits of confusion here is that this organization of people have changed their names at least 3 times that I'm aware of. And so the rub is that they changed their name. It confuses the customers. The company is currently called Claris. They are that division or department or subsidiary, whatever you want to call it, of Apple. So they're very much Apple employees. It's a department of Apple, which means that there's really a high standard that they have to strive to be. So that's good. In the training going forward, if I say the word Claris, I'm either talking about the organization or the people. This bit of terminology is easy. So far, we're easy. It gets harder. In fact, we might need flashcards here pretty soon. It's going to be challenging. All right, so moving down in our list. So this is a new term that has come out. I kind of, talking to some of the people at Claris, have determined that this is the best term to use at the current time. So what we're going to be talking about here in this event is the FileMaker Unified Platform. Notice that if I turn that into an acronym, it doesn't create a cuss word or anything spicy, right? That's one of those things when you create an acronym, you have to check for unintended spiciness. The FileMaker platform is a cohesive, unified group of products that Claris International creates, right? It's cohesive, meaning that they work together, okay? This screenshot here is of this. We're going to talk about this more in length and depth, but I just want to say that this is the unified platform. I'm calling it the FileMaker Unified Platform. Claris, if you go to their website, you're likely to see them call it the Claris platform or the Claris FileMaker platform or some variation thereof. That causes confusion with customers because they just had the Claris platform and they just kind of reorganized it. And so it's one of those things that if you overuse a word, then it becomes less useful and less descriptive. Claris, the people, the organization at Claris tends to apply the word Claris to everything. And I mean everything, as if that was the most singularly important thing in the world. And so it's Claris this, Claris this, Claris this, Claris. And it to the point where it dilutes the value of it. So I'm not going to use it only in so much as describe the people, the group of people, the department at Claris, or the organization in its entirety, which, once again, is a division of Apple. Okay, let's cover some terminology real quick. Data, right? Data, almost every application, every day, we all have data, right? We all understand what data is, spreadsheets of data, notes of data, things like that. In the world of FileMaker, the data is the user information that's input into the system. It can be imported, it could be typed in, it could be scanned, but it's data that is input by the user, okay? Somehow. Even if the user kind of automated it, it's still kind of user data. Then we have the interface. This is the graphical interface of a application, right? So it's the little boxes, the prettiness, the way it interacts, things like that. FileMaker has all these things in it, right? It has the data storage in it. It has the interface. It has the application logic, which is the calculation fields. Like if you say, what's today, how old is Richard today? And you do a calculation, you have my birthday minus today's date or something like that, then you get how old I am, right? And you find out that I'm only 23 years old. And so then your calculation would be an error, right? But that's the app logic. It's the process, the logic. It's also the scripting that's built into it. A lot of products don't have robust data storage, interface, application logic built in. FileMaker also greatly supports reporting. The ability to, in the old days, it was paper reports. Paper. Now it's largely either web pages or PDFs, digital reports. Less trees are being sacrificed to make reports, but sometimes we still do paper, right? It's important. Another thing about the FileMaker platform is integration. So integration is a loose term that means connecting things together. The FileMaker is a cohesive platform, and you could say that the individual parts in there are integrated together. I think that goes without saying. They're all designed to talk to each other, right? But integration becomes more interesting when you have a FileMaker system talk to like Slack, or it talks to Zoom, or it goes to PayPal and processes orders from PayPal. Like you can do a PayPal order, it goes and you complete it with PayPal or Square or Triangle or Cube or Octagon or some PayPal or some payment service, and then it automatically feeds in the FileMaker, creates the invoice, and logs the payment information. How cool is that? That's a very big deal. That's the loose term of integration, right? You can integrate with other data systems, things like that. FileMaker supports security, right? Security, at the end of the day, when we're first building things, we're not going to really worry about security too much. It gets back into this idea, this progression of learning. I'm going to talk about this, but the security is that you can give individual people their own level of security. So say, for example, I'm going to pick on Megan. Hopefully, Megan, you're cool with this. I'm just going to pick on you. One of the longtime watchers of our live stream is here, along with Jake. Welcome those people. I think they're in Wisconsin. It's probably already dinner time for them here. And so Megan, let's say Megan is only allowed to do certain, like look at certain screens of information and access certain data. Then Megan could have a role as an ROLE. It's her status in life, her position in life, her job title. Maybe Megan is the director of FileMaker engineering at their company. She's a director. That's her title. She would have certain access that might be limited. Maybe the people above her would have access to more things, more HR, more financial related confidential information. So you can segment data based upon security codes and passwords. In fact, I think we spend a day or two talking about that. Deployment, huge conversation. This is after you have a FileMaker solution, okay, an application. We're going to talk more terminology, right? I use terminology to explain terminology, so we're starting at the beginning, right? Deployment is how you get it out to your users, simply, right? How do the users access it? The FileMaker advantage is that it rolls all these together, right? You have people that they say things like, oh, I want to be Airtable, or I want to be this, or I want to be that, or I want to be CRM Dynamics or some other products, or Salesforce, right? FileMaker has a decisive advantage. The FileMaker platform, the unified platform, has a decisive advantage. It does all these things very inexpensively compared to products that actually try to compete. Most products don't include all these, right? If you go to Airtable, it's missing huge blocks of information, right? They have a great sales and marketing team there at Airtable, phenomenal in terms of their outreach and marketing, but the product can't keep up with FileMaker. What I try to do, and the reason I promote FileMaker, let me just spend a moment here. I eat my own dog food. You've heard me refer to this before. I use FileMaker myself personally all the time, everywhere. If I didn't use it personally, I wouldn't sell it. So if you see me promoting something, it's because I personally use it. I personally believe in it. I am a horrible salesperson. The average salesperson can sell anything. They don't care what they sell. They just like the rush of doing the deal. You know what I'm talking about. I have one of these guys that works for me, okay, people. I, on the other hand, promote what I like and what I use. So I won't promote certain capabilities or features or things like that because I don't use them, because either they don't work for me, I don't have any experience in them, or they're inferior. They're inferior, in which case I'm not going to promote and tell you to use something that I would not use myself. So that's why I'm so absolutely confident what I say, because it's the stuff I use. So the FileMaker platform has strategic advantages. If there was a better platform out there, I'd be using that. There is no better platform out there. So I'm not using it. So here I am. And I've been here for 33 years now. And if someone can show me a better platform, please send it to me at rick@rcconsulting.com, and I will get your email and I will be happy to look at it. So the FileMaker advantage, combination of data structure, the data, the underlying data, user interface, the application logic. It has all these elements built in. It's like kind of, if you see me reading along here, this is what we're kind of going through. So let's talk about additional terminology, okay? FileMaker Pro is the application we're going to spend 95% talking about. It is two things, two important things. It messes people up. They don't understand this. FileMaker is the tool that end users will use to access a solution in most cases. In most cases, users, for the most robust experience, listen to what I said, I'm going to say that again. For the most robust experience, users will be using a laptop or desktop computer. That is the most robust experience. It's got more capabilities. It's got more screen real estate as opposed to my iPhone or something small like that. It's not the most mobile experience, but it's the most powerful, diverse experience that you can have, a robust experience, right? So it is Mac and Windows, it works identically on both. It also is the developer tool, the builder tool, the make an application tool. It's the that gives the developers the ability to build the application. In fact, some of the most powerful things in professional developers, you'll meet them out there in the world, they cringe. They'll be using the database and they're like, oh, this is wrong. I'm going to go to layout mode, a mode in FileMaker. I'm going to make a fix and then go back to user mode, right? That is such a foreign concept in a vast majority of data systems. It really is. Most of them just don't pivot like that very easily. FileMaker goes back and forth. Professional developers are a professional developer. You can already know the ones that are going to complain about this live stream. Oh, I'm a professional. They're going to be like, you never use it and then also develop at the same time because bad things might happen. Almost no bad things really happen at the end of the day. You need to be thoughtful about not causing problems for your users. Like if they're on a layout and you delete the layout, then suddenly they're going to be on a screen that boop, disappears, right? But that would be kind of common sense, right? So part of this is going to be common sense conversation. So that's Pro, the end user tool, the developer tool, okay? Very important. FileMaker Go, the iOS tool, okay? iPhone and iPad access is FileMaker Go. There's no watch access I'm aware of, although the watch is so small that I don't know how much you could really put in on that. Claris could build a client for the watch. I'm sure actually they've done this internally to play with it. Their engineers have. I'd bet you $1,000 right now that they're somewhere down there they've built that and they played with it. But the problem is what do you do with a 1 inch by 1 inch? I'm always the guy who says, I prefer 3 32-inch monitors displayed around my computer, right? Here I am over here. I got monitor, big giant monitor surrounded by monitors everywhere. And so how do I go to an iPhone, which I hate, except for making calls and basic text messaging, or down to like a 1 inch giant postage stamp screen? It's a lot. So that's FileMaker Go. The people are going to ask, where is Android? There's not going to be a FileMaker Go for Android, period. They've been talking about Android since 2008 or 2009, whenever that came out, because that's when Go came out, around 2010 or so. It's been 13 years and there's no Android, okay? There's not going to be an Android. The problem is that Apple as a platform makes most of their revenue in terms of billions and billions of dollars off the iPhones and iPads. They make about 10% of their revenue off the Mac, okay? Which is still billions of dollars, right? And so what ends up happening is that but they don't get any incentive really for helping to sell Android devices. So I think that's a hard push. It doesn't mean you can't make your data available there. It just means that there's not going to be FileMaker Go for that. So you build the solution in Pro, you test it in Pro. Your users mostly will be using Pro. If they want to use it in Go, they can do that. But to really do that, you need to have the solution parked, and I'm using my air quotes again, parked up on a server. The server can be on-premise. On-premise means within your building somewhere, or up in the cloud, which for the most part means up in Amazon's office is what that means, right? I would say, what does Amazon control? 60% or 70% of the cloud services in terms of dollars and volume and things like that. When Apple has their own data centers and stuff, Apple is super tight with Amazon. They shift back and forth. Sometimes Apple will sometimes use their own data centers. Sometimes they'll use Amazon data centers. That's how big they are, and those two companies are big. So understand that you're going to build a solution, at least initially, and this is getting to where Centauri 272 is asking the question, what is the chronological order of building an application? We're going to get to that as we go. But we're kind of laying the pieces out here first, defining these, okay? So I understand that you're going to take FileMaker, your FileMaker solution, which will be a file. It's a file on your computer, at least a single file on your computer, a single file. You're going to park it on the server. There is a alternate called Claris Cloud. Claris Cloud is a service that Claris, the organization, built, that they take the FileMaker server product and they combine it with an Amazon server, kind of pre-bake it for you, and so it hosts it automatically. For small customers who don't have a lot of users, and you don't have a lot of requirements, it makes sense. If you have a lot of deep requirements or you have a lot of users, either the cost gets prohibitive or or the capabilities are limited. It's just not as robust as the term robust. It does all the easy things well, Claris Cloud, but they took FileMaker Server and they trimmed some things out of it that they didn't want to have in it, is what they did. So Claris Cloud has a subset of features from FileMaker Server. Claris Cloud, I believe, runs in Amazon. I'm pretty positive runs in Amazon. And if you could set up your own FileMaker server and have it run on Amazon. In fact, we set servers up for people all the time. Jacob Taylor, one of our chief engineering architects down here in terms of servers and IT shenanigans, sets these up for people all the time. So if you, for some reason, have questions about that, we can't handle that right now, send an email to support@rcconsulting.com. So let's talk about other terminology here real quick. So the term client. When I say the word client, I'm not talking about like an attorney and you have your clients and they're in jail, but you're trying to get them out because they've been accused of, I don't know, robbing a 7-Eleven or something, right? Robbing a store. Clients in the world of software are local pieces of software that consume data. Typically that's hosted on the cloud somewhere, on a server somewhere. So the client is FileMaker Pro. A client is FileMaker Go. That is if those two pieces of software are talking to FileMaker server, right? This is the server. All these three items down here, Pro, Go, and also WebDirect is a web browser-based client. Those are all clients. They are receptacles of the data. The data in a client, because there's the other part of the conversation is server. It's called client server. The database lives on the server. So if you have an actual FileMaker file, like right here is an actual FileMaker file. I'm going to pop it open. Here it is. Here's the actual FileMaker file. This file is running locally on my computer. It's on premise, air quotes, right? I can take the file. We're going to do this tomorrow or the next day. Post it on the server. So the basically what FileMaker does, it leaves a copy here for me that I should probably hide or get rid of, and it puts it on the server, okay? So it takes a copy of this file, puts it on the server. So your FileMaker file, which is the structure of the file, the data of the file, the logic, the scripts, everything, the user interface, everything that makes it wonderful is living on the FileMaker server. So this file is only on the server. Then these clients can log on to the server and bring down just the data that you need to see to make for you to perform your job, right? So show me, say Megan has a restricted access. She logs in, she only sees certain layouts of certain records of data. The client will only download just those bits that she needs. That way, it keeps the performance of the solution as fast as possible. Performance in the world of FileMaker is an important consideration once you're past the beginner stage. We're not going to worry about it too much today. Maybe towards the end of the event, we're going to talk more about performance, but really it's the consideration of this. Real quick, this is where everyone's at here. I'm gonna pivot here briefly, okay? So this is the progression of learning. This is something that we came up with a while back. Everyone that I'm talking to today, or at least my target audience, are the people that are in here, the brand new developer, okay? You also could be a developer with lots of experience, but you haven't done it. You haven't done FileMaker lately. That's such great English. You ain't done FileMaker lately, right? But you're not like a day-to-day, everyday professional like, say, Jake Shealy, right? Or a bunch of you here. Foxy, Jack, Compare, a whole bunch of you are professional developers. But understand that my job is to take you from here up to kind of closer to this intermediate stage over the next 30 days. That's my goal. So understand that a lot of the things that we would be worried about, performance comes into play as you hit intermediate developer level. Right now, as a beginner developer, all we care about is that if we build something, it works. And I don't mean works fast or works slow. I mean it works at all, right? Does it work? Like if I do a calculation to calculate Richard's birthday and it comes out to 23 years old, your calculation is an error. It did not work. You don't care how fast or slow that calculation went. It took a second, half a second, 3 seconds. You don't care. You just want to be correct. Okay? Makes sense? Right? So that's the concern as a beginning developer, that it works at all. And then you start to get that rush, that feeling of success because you got it to work. And then you build something else and it works. And then you build something else, it doesn't work. You struggle for a little bit, then it works. And you start building on the success. And it starts to give you a sense of accomplishment, right? Megan, Jake, all of you, Kim Bear, all the folks that are here, David, Mark, all of you know this. It gives that feeling of success. FileMaker allows you to create something wonderful to help people. Now the idea is that you get paid for building things that help people, right? Getting paid is always a kind of a good thing, but it gives you the platform, the tools for that success. The FileMaker Unified Platform gives you the tools for success. So pivoting back to my conversation real quick, we'll have to fix this artwork here. So we had Pro, we had Go, we have FileMaker Server or Claris Cloud. Okay, that's their service, right? The service. This one here, you have to set up your own server. You can hire someone to help you. This one is just a service that you pay Claris to handle for you, okay? Claris Studio and Claris Connect are two additional pieces of technology that augment the FileMaker platform. They are not the center of the FileMaker platform. When Claris first came out with these things, they thought, oh my gosh, like, oh, it's going to be the center of the world, blah, 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 blah. Somewhere along the way, Claris figured out that the core of the platform is FileMaker. It is FileMaker. So if we go back this graphic, I'm going to hit this real quick and then we'll move forward. The core of this is FileMaker Server and Pro. At the core, without those two things, you're dead. It doesn't work. It's just shoot it, it's gone. Okay. FileMaker Pro, FileMaker Server are the core of the platform. Everything else revolves around that. FileMaker Go. You can't build with FileMaker Go. You can only consume with it. If you want to build or edit a solution, you must have Pro on Mac or Windows. Then you park it on FileMaker Server so you can deploy it to your team. You can deploy it. Most average FileMaker work groups are 10, 15, 20 people, okay? That's the average size. You can deploy it to, well, I've deployed as high as 400, okay? I get nervous above that on a single server. Claris seems to think they can do 1,000. I don't know about that. I haven't tried that personally yet. I only promise things if I've done it before. That's how that works. So Claris Connect is an integration product that allows FileMaker Server or your FileMaker data to potentially more easily connect with PayPal or Twitter or Zoom or some online service. That's what Claris Connect, it's a connector piece. It's actually the newer part of the product. It's starting to look good. It started off a little rocky, kind of overpriced. Now you can get Claris Connect as a free trial, not even a trial, a free tier that runs indefinitely as a developer to play with it. But if you have like more than a couple hundred calls a month or something like that, whatever, they have this formula that if you go over the usage, then you need to start spending some money with Claris. But that's useful, right? The idea in the strategic big sense of things, Claris Connect and at some point here, Claris Studio will have free tiers that you can play with. From a strategic standpoint, Claris would love all single user people who are learning the platform to not have to pay for it. It's not rolled out yet. It's not implemented yet. They've been working on it 7 or 8, 10 years. That being said, I think now that Claris has seen the organization has seen some success with Claris Connect, you're going to see this with Claris Studio, where they're going to offer free tiers. So as a developer, you can master it, learn with it, play with it. As soon as you roll it out to a paying customer, then it's fair for that customer to write a check to Claris, because while I don't want the individual people like yourselves learning FileMaker to write a big check, $1,000 to get going, it makes sense that once a business derives value from it, it's a business expense. The business should pay for it. Margaret, you have questions at all? Okay,
yes, we do. Okay, so the first question is from Centauri. So you could start in cloud and continue to server? ?
What you can do is in your development process is what most people do is they start right over here. I'm just gonna cover this right now. You build a solution, you have it running locally on your computer, Mac or Windows. I don't particularly care, okay? I've used Windows recently quite a bit. It seems to work just as well as Mac does, at least for basic FileMaker stuff. I'm on a Mac here, so I use both. Most people start off running it locally on their computer. As soon as you want to share it with yourself across multiple locations or share it with other users, you really need to put it on FileMaker Server. Your choice is either FileMaker Server or Claris Cloud. Strategically, I think FileMaker Server is a better answer in the current time. Maybe at some point Claris Cloud does something decisive to make it more compelling. But if you can get an IT person to help you, or get with Jacob Taylor, one of our people, about 2 hours of work and he has the server set up for you, then you have your own server. The data then doesn't live on your computer. It lives there where it's backed up all the time and protected. See, we've had people who had it on the copy of the file on their laptop, and the laptop gets stolen. I've had how many engineers over 30 years have had their laptop stolen out of their cars with the databases on it? I've had 2 that I'm aware of, and those are the engineers that volunteered to tell me that and didn't want to hide it from me. Yeah, I'm being serious. So if your only database is on your laptop and your laptop is stolen, then what? Well, I've got backups. Okay, well, assuming that it's working correctly and all that happens. Most of the time, backup software doesn't work real great with FileMaker files. There's reasons for that. Just take my word for it. It's better to put it on FileMaker server where it's backed up all the time. So if your laptop is stolen or your laptop crashes, your database is protected. The road to hell is with pulling the pins on grenades is not keeping your database backed up properly, right? Pull the pin and let go of the spoon and just hold on to it. Put it in your mouth like that. Put a grenade in your mouth. That's what crashing your FileMaker file is like. It's not good. No bueno, okay? You're going to build it on Pro. Then you can put it on server. While it's on server, you can still do development. I do almost all my development while the FileMaker file is on the server. But I'm talking about the progression for brand new people, the progression of learning. If you're a brand new person, right, you're going to have it locally here, then somewhere in here, like, boy, it'd be really great if I had a FileMaker server to park this on. And how do I get that? And what's the cheapest way I can do that? Blah, blah, blah. Okay. And then when you get in here, then you're definitely running it on a server. Okay. The server out the door for 5 users, and I know this will aggravate people, is about $900 a year for the software plus the cost of hardware. So you're looking at about $1,400 a year. And that's so it's like, and that's for 5 users. The problem is Claris doesn't sell a tier of it less than 5 users. That is the idea with that. Margaret, do you have another question?
Yes, we have someone called Frenry 1751. FileMaker Pro, both the database on the server and the client application on the laptop/desktop. It's basically asking if FileMaker Pro is both the database on the server and is the client and the client application. So.
Okay, so the FileMaker application, if I go on my computer here real quick, here is FileMaker Pro. I have a bunch of different versions on here. Disregard that. FileMaker Pro is a database. In here is the database engine. If I fire this up, or I fire it up over here, I'm going to hide this. I'm going to double click it. So I'm in FileMaker right now. At the current time, I'm accessing the data in this file. This file contains the structure of the tables, the fields, all that kind of stuff. If you're a technical person, right? It also contains the end user data. FileMaker does not separate the end user data from the structure. It puts it in one file. It's very good at doing it that way. It's designed to work that way. Okay, I'm just going to say it's designed to work that way. If you have a differing opinion, that's a different conversation. But the data and the structure all live in one file. If you want to put the file up on the cloud, then you're going to put it in a piece of software. The software, like where this says FileMaker Pro, there's one of these that says FileMaker Server. It lives on the server, on a Windows server, a Linux server, a Mac server. It lives on one of those. And notice that while Pro is showing me the interface, and it's also the database engine right here running locally, on server, you're not going to see anything else. We're going to see this tomorrow. All you see is a screen that says, these are the files that are running, and these are the logged on users that are using it, essentially. It does quite a bit more than that, but at the end of the day, it doesn't show you what's in the file. It's hosting the file. All the FileMaker server does, it's like a web server. If you've ever set up a web server, do you see web pages when you're on the web server? No. And this is for if you're a technical person. The web server just sends out HTML files. That's all it does. And JavaScript files, that's all it does. FileMaker server is the same thing. It just sends out the data so clients can access it. So the server hosts it, protects it, backs it up. The clients consume it and access it across the internet or your local office network. You saw me pause there because it could be the internet or your office network or both, right? We're good on that?
Next question. Kind of an interesting one. Who pays and how much if you volunteer to do a softball schedule app for the local club and don't expect to be paid? Yeah, basically they're asking how they organize paying for FileMaker if they're doing it as a pro bono sort of thing for their club. And how much does it cost?
Okay, so generally Claris doesn't want to do business transactions that are about less than $1,000. For whatever reason, they came up with this 8 or 9 years ago, and I got into their face about it, and they were like absolutely resistant to that idea. They really don't want to be selling things for $69 and $59. They would either rather make it free to reel you in, and then when you deploy it, you pay. That's the model they're trying to go to. The current model is kind of a mishmash of different ideas, but you're going to have to pay in the near term. They don't really have like half off non-profit pricing. I think you can save a little bit, but you have to have a 50C31 or 501c3, the official. That's a U.S. government designation for a nonprofit, wherever you're at. You have to have an official nonprofit and go down that road. I mean, you could save probably 10% on it, maybe. I don't know. Yeah, you don't save very much. The short version is that if you have a nonprofit and you don't want to pay for it, and so then you pass the hat, right? You take your baseball cap or whatever hat you're wearing, you turn it upside down, you pass it around to everyone, have everyone put $5 or $10 in it, and when you get to $1,000 and you have enough for the thing, that or you go rob a store. But that one is, this is law and order, so I can have that. So I would recommend that if you need a stack of cash like this, that you go into a local store and you hold them up and you steal this, okay? That's the disorder part of the law and order thing. Otherwise, pass the hat. I don't know what else to say. It's kind of a funny question, right? A little bit.
Yeah, it's kind of like an interesting conversation. So related, if you share your app with 2 persons, then server is really expensive.
Yeah, that's the problem, right? So at the entry level point's five users for the server. And so like I use FileMaker in 3 different office locations. So I would pay for it just for me, but I try to get it as cheap as I possibly could. And I don't know, I'd have to go back and see what Claris is doing with this, but they really need a low cost offering for developers. I think you're going to see a lot of movement on this next year, but that doesn't help us right now because we're not even really close to Christmas yet. I mean, the end of the year is coming rapidly, but we were hoping to have the free version of FileMaker, like for 1 person free, already this year. The rub is if you're in this 2, 3, 4 person group of people, then you're in this weird area because they're not going to really give it away for you for free for 2 people. They're going to give it away free for 1 person, and then they're going to sell a 5-pack. So there's this no man's land of 2, 3, 4. It's like, it's just not I don't know what to tell you besides if you're really looking for the best possible deal, send me an email to support RC Consulting about what your situation is. We will give you a little guidance on that.
I am going to grab a Zoom question. I see all the other questions. I will get to them shortly. Can you create/deploy standalone databases? FileMaker used to do that a long, long time ago.
FileMaker does not currently deploy standalone databases. What I can tell you is that I think this is going to get solved, okay? Here's the deal. If we go back to my graphic over here, so here's what we have today. Claris Connect has a free tier essentially for like 1 person. Claris Studio, if it doesn't have a free tier, we'll have a free tier shortly. If I've missed pre-announced this, then someone will get mad at me. But at the end of the day, all the products need to have a free tier for 1 person. So if you built a solution, like you say, I have the ultimate recipe database, right, of recipes. I can't imagine that being a very popular thing, but say you come up with that. Or you have a softball application. One of the people here built a database system that manages AAA baseball, like Major League Baseball. Essentially, it's junior Major League Baseball. They built an app. Is Larry. Did a great job. Fantastic application. If he wanted to deploy it to individual people, then those individual people would need to have individual copies of FileMaker Pro they didn't buy. If FileMaker Pro were to have a free tier, then you would have a path to this. Does that make sense what I'm saying? Okay, so Claris has said they want to do a free tier FileMaker Pro. I haven't seen anything that says that it's scheduled for this calendar year. Okay, so if it happens, it won't be before next calendar year. That being said, once upon a time, you could build a little solution and then you press some buttons and out would come a little custom version of FileMaker Pro for Mac or Windows and your solution all be bolted together and you could give it to people. That would work for on-premise solutions. Now, remember what I said about on-premise solutions. They're dangerous because if you're playing with something and experimenting and learning, that's easy, that's fun, that's safe. But if you're putting real data in there, valuable data, would you recommend chewing on a grenade? Oh, chew on the grenade because it might go off, okay? So you want to take it and put it on server. Why do you put it on FileMaker server? Because it's always protected. It's always backed up. If someone steals your laptop or your office burns down or a hurricane, heaven forbid, which we haven't had one yet, but I guarantee someone's going to get splattered this year with a giant Category 5 hurricane. Every time that happens, people say, my laptop's flooded. I've lost all my data. Maui, the Maui fire. We had a customer there who his office incinerated, burned to the ground. Where was his data? Because he listened to Richard. It was on FileMaker server in an Amazon data center. He lost the whole business, but his data and his database are protected. That is why. That was that Maui thing. There's a reason I promote this such vigorously, right? Go ahead.
I'm gonna phrase it. Do you need to check if the client needs FM Pro on their computer?
Okay, so let's talk about clients. Let's focus on this graphic, ask questions about this graphic. This is the time to get these questions answered. I'm not going to stop this until all the questions are answered. So I'm not going to have a hard stop top of the hour. So just hang with me if you really want the questions and answers. So you start off by building a FileMaker locally like I am right here. The file's on my computer. I'm playing with it. It's local. Then I decide I want to protect it and or host it with, share it with people in real time so they can all be on the same screen, say the same data. And as one person edits the data, all the other people see it in real time. We will see that, but trust me, it just works, okay? So that's a server. These are clients. The third client is a web browser-based client. We can show that. Basically, the web browser client tries to replicate what your FileMaker Pro based layout does. So you build it all in Pro. You can build an iPhone layout in FileMaker Pro that's specific to iPhone. If I'm over here in FileMaker Pro, this is obviously designed for kind of a screen. I could come over here. I don't know if this one has, if we have any iPad or iPhone. I don't think it's in this one here. Well, I'll get a different file out, but you have screens that are smaller and shorter and everything fits in there. That would be the size of an upright phone. And so that's what you would use for FileMaker Pro, or correction, FileMaker Go. So you build it in Pro, you can have a mobile screen in Go, right? In fact, if I go to layout mode in FileMaker, this is the development mode, okay? This is the layout. If I grab and drag things and move things around, so we have browse mode and layout mode. Most of you understand this. If anyone doesn't understand that, we will cover modes another day, but this is the development mode. I can grab things and move them around and do this and do that and reorganize and add things, but I can show up here, right here, stencils. I could say, well, I want to develop for a desktop, or I want to develop for an iPhone 14. So it puts a little yellow line here. If you can see this right here, that shows me that everything, if I want to show up on the phone, has to be inside those yellow lines. Pro is your development environment, and then other people can consume it, use it as a client with Pro or Go or WebDirect, which is a browser. So you can use on an Android device, you can use a browser to access your FileMaker data. Is it officially Android support? No. Does it work on Android? Yes, it does, with FileMaker Server. FileMaker Server here can send data out to Pro, Go, or it can do WebDirect, which is a browser-based, it's the same screen, looks very similar, a little bit slower, but that is WebDirect. Question, Margaret, as I mute myself.
FileMaker database on the server and one FileMaker Pro on the laptop. Is this a two-license scenario?
You are a user. So a user scenario in the world of FileMaker is a human being. And I had to think about how I say that because I don't even know if you have an AI in it. I don't even know how that applies. But yeah, so a human being. So Richard, I have a computer here. I have a computer in the other room. I have a computer in Stockton dedicated for me when I'm working there. I have a computer in Texas dedicated. I have a computer in Los Osos dedicated. Too many computers, right? But I'm kind of the CEO and I do training everywhere. And sometimes I don't want to, like with big screens, I don't want to have to, every time I take a trip, move all that gear. And I also have a laptop. So that's like 7 or 8 computers that I use. I am one user. So that counts as one user license, even though I have 8 or 10 computers. And when I'm sitting at my desk, I could be probably using about 3 at a time is the most I can use, like effectively. I always think a professional developer has at least 2 computers on their desk, Mac and Windows, to test on both, build on one, test on the other. And I can use 3 and then sometimes a phone. So I could use up to 4 at one time. Claris's legal definition is a user is a human. Now, if I have a desk in another state, like in Dallas, Texas, and I'm here in California, then there's no one on my Dallas, Texas computer using it because I can't be in California and Texas at the same time. If someone magically sits down at that desk there, then they are a second user. Richard is one person. I'm in one location at a time. That's how that works. So 5 users is 5 people. All right, so let me continue pushing down here towards the bottom of this because we're going to be landing the plane momentarily here. So Claris Studio. So Claris Connect is this capability that allows you to do integration, right? So we're back to this graphic. This allows you to possibly, depending upon what you're trying to do, more easily connect to PayPal or some other third-party service. Claris Studio has absorbed a ton of time and money by Claris. It's something I don't use yet. Remember, we had that conversation earlier about me eating my own dog food. I don't use it yet because it doesn't solve a problem that I immediately have. Claris Studio, I think, eventually will be a very valuable asset into the platform as a supporting cast member. Like if this is your main actors over here, your main actor is your best supporting female actor and your best supporting male actor, right? You know, FileMaker Server and FileMaker Pro, then your cast of supporting secondary characters are frankly Go and WebDirect and Claris Connect and Claris Studio. Claris Studio is like the 5-year-old who's in the movie for 2 minutes and then disappears. You never see him again. Claris Studio, what they're trying to do is give it capabilities that are not easily already produced in the FileMaker platform. The capability they're trying to solve right now is anonymous web forms that you submit that go straight into FileMaker. That's what they're trying to solve with it. Right now, it doesn't really solve them in a robust enough way for me to use it. That's just me, my limited opinion, okay? And that's kind of been this platform consolidation thing is Claris Studio, Claris Connect, all these things come together into a single FileMaker unified platform. Why do I say the word FileMaker? Because that FileMaker is the core of the platform. Despite what anyone else anywhere thinks or wishes it was or hopes it was or prays it was, the FileMaker server product, the FileMaker Pro product are the core of the platform, and everyone else is a supporting cast member. Okay, other questions we have. So we're down there, cruising to the bottom, security development, FileMaker Advantage. We talked about these things. Terminology, Pro, Go. Go is iPhone, iPad. There's no Go for Android. Not going to be one. Okay. Additional terminology, clients. A client is a user. Okay. Sometimes the term client in a technical standpoint might refer to a machine. Like, oh, we're having problem with Windows clients. That would be computers that are Windows with certain versions, right? So let's talk about confusing terminology. So generally a client, a user is a person. A client could be a user or a physical machine, okay? That's a terminology problem. A developer, okay? I use the word developer, programmer, engineer synonymously. These are people who, like most of you here, either are programmers, developers, or engineers, or you want to become one, okay? That's what I have been doing for 33 years, right? I've got quite good at it, right? Server. Server is a very loose term. Let's talk about this. So server can mean one of a bunch of different things, like, hey, the server's crashed, or no, the server's on fire, or would you like to upgrade the server software? So those are all possibilities. So server can refer to the hardware where FileMaker server is running. The server loosely might mean the software that's running on the server, or it might loosely mean both the hardware and the software. So it's a little bit context based, right? If that makes sense. Like we're having problems with the Windows server. Well, then I put the word Windows on there, which means that the operating system has a problem. I'm not saying we are. I'm just saying as an example, Windows is pretty reliable. So the server is a loose term, okay? Scrolling down, local file. This is the on-premise file. It's where you have a .fmp12 file. Maybe some of you have a Claris file. Pretty soon you won't have a Claris file. It'll only be FMP12, okay? And that's the file that's on your computer. Keep in mind that you really need it backed up in a reliable way, and you need to not crash that file, because crashing the file, like having FileMaker run, like if I'm over here in FileMaker down here, I'm running FileMaker, and then suddenly I'm going to force quit FileMaker right now. By doing this, it's running a local file. I might damage the file. Right? Literally, it's like grabbing the grenade and tugging on the pin. So we're going to tug on the pin. Can I possibly get the pin out of the grenade? Every time you crash, it's like a tug on the pin. Someday, you're going to pull that pin, it's going to come out. So that's why you don't want to crash your local FileMaker file. If you crash a local FileMaker file, you always go to a backup. What if I don't have a backup? Well, then you have to use the crash one. And I'm saying, and if you crash a file once or twice or 5 times, it's not the end of the world. But somewhere when you start those chances of pulling that pin on the grenade, those chances start to amount to a measurable risk assessment, risk management, a big part of what we do. Minimizing the risk, prioritizing the upside gain from using the FileMaker platform. Okay. Question, Margaret.
Next question. Why is runtime solution gone?
The short version of why runtime solutions are gone is because Claris never monetized it. Okay. They created it back with FileMaker 3. It cannibalized a bunch of sales at FileMaker 3. This goes back 30 years. Then FileMaker 4 came out, and it basically stayed the same all the way through that. Claris would put about $500,000 of engineering effort into the runtime every year. They never got that money back. The rule of thumb in business is that if you put $1 in, you want $2 or $3 back, if not more. Claris never monetized it. I don't know why. They were afraid of it or whatever. But the short version is that if someone's deriving value from, listen, if you want to build a runtime and to distribute solutions, then a free copy of Pro will go a long way towards solving that problem. So it's coming back. But they got rid of runtime because people would buy it. People would say, oh, well, if the customer likes this, then they're going to buy FileMaker. Claris did a bunch of surveys and stuff that found out that the people using runtimes never really came back and bought much of the product. There wasn't a big upside to revenue sales. In fact, they thought it was a net financial negative. So you're asking why they got rid of it? I mean, like everything else in the world, follow the money. Okay. If they were making like every day, they're making $50,000 cash on sales of runtime, would it be gone? No. So they never monetized it.
Next question. If the data is on a server, do you need a copy of FileMaker Pro on each desk/laptop to access the data?
Fantastic question. So if the data, so we build the file, you start with it here, then you realize, oh, I want to share this with everyone, like the starting point. Here's the starting point. The one I crash. Let's double click and open it. Not damaged. It's okay. It doesn't seem to be damaged. You can't really tell, but it appears to be okay. So we say, hey, let's share this with everyone. We're going to do this tomorrow. I think tomorrow, next day. I'm going to close this. You put it up on the FileMaker server. Once it's on the FileMaker server, to access it, you will need Pro, Go, or a browser. You're like, well, why would I ever use Pro or Go then? I just use a browser. Because a browser is inferior to a dedicated application, right? Like if you go into Photoshop, does Photoshop run in a browser? No, right? People who try to I'm gonna, like these companies that are going to compete with Adobe, right? We're going to build it. It's going to run in a browser. Okay. The road to hell is paved with people who don't know any better. Okay. A browser it's not a dedicated application. It tries to pretend to do things for you, and it does a pretty good job. It can do an okay job, a mediocre job, maybe above, maybe an average job. Okay. But it's not as powerful as a dedicated application. FileMaker Pro is a purpose-built, dedicated application for Mac and Windows. FileMaker Go is a purpose-built, dedicated application for iPhones and iPads. WebDirect takes these layouts that you build and renders them on a browser the best it can. Okay, you hear what I said? The best it can, which means that some things aren't going to work so good, if at all. So when you build and your client is a browser, you need to think about what sorts of things work and don't work with the browser. I'm not saying that to freak people out, but if you're a brand new beginner, then there's a little documentation that Claris has, all the things you should be aware of. It should say the shit that don't work in WebDirect that works in Pro and Go. Okay, that's what the document should say, but it actually just says things that you should be consider. So the answer is the professional developer needs Pro, must have Pro. But your clients who access it, technically you have a choice, Pro, Go, or WebDirect. You have a choice. You have a choice. We like choices, Margaret, don't we? We like choices. Other questions? We're kind of at the end of the content here for day one.
Just kind of a comment, which I think might be interesting to comment on. It's also important to recognize that FileMaker Go client is now free of charge. So you can kind of say that there is a runtime. It's only for iOS.
Yeah, so to be clear about it, Connect has a free tier. Studio has or will have a free tier. Go is free on the Apple App Store. But here's the deal, really where this is going to come into, and what Claris really needs to do, and this is where this goes, and this would simplify it so much. They should only charge for server. That's it. They can call it a company license or a team license or whatever you want to call it. They change the name about every 3 or 4 years. All they need to do is you download server for free, and it works with one person for free, would be ideal. And it kind of works this way now, really. It doesn't, one person's not free, but you download FileMaker Server, the installer, then you buy a license for 5 people or any number, any integer equal to or greater than 5, so 5, 6, 7, 8, 100, 400. You pay for that group. They give you the little license key. You put in your server. Your server will output to up to that number of users. Okay, that's how that works. So you have to have Pro, Go, or WebDirect. But yeah, ideally, so when you use Go, it's free until you access a server. Then it deducts one of the available slots that you've bought. If you buy a 5-pack and you have 2 people on Pro, and so there's 2 being used, and then you log in with Go, it'll see that. It'll deduct another one. So you have 3 of the 5 licenses in use at the current time.
Related question, funnily enough, if you purchase a 5-license FileMaker Pro license, what happens when user 6 attempts to access the file on the server?
I'm not going to get into super deep about connections, but if you buy 5 users and you have 5 people, the 6th person who tries to log in will get an error message saying that they need the server won't allow them to connect. It should ask you for your credit card and then put that in and fix it. But realistically, once again, if you buy 5 users, right, 5 users, then you should have, and I'm just going to say this very quickly, and then a lot of you will try to attorney, you're going to attorney the hell out of it. Yeah. But the short version is if you buy 5-pack for 5 people, you should be able to name, and it's in the license, it says this, you should be able to name those 5 people. Claris might not ask you for those names, but they could audit you and say, please give me the names. I'd say, okay, Fred, Steve, Wilma, Sally, and Mohammed, okay? 5 people. So if Dick Smith wants to access it, he's number 6, he shouldn't access it. Legally, you should have 6 for that. Make sense? Now, if you don't know the names of the people, and you don't want to know the names of people, you can buy concurrent licenses. It's a much more expensive license, but when we could talk about that another day, that's a bigger conversation. But that's a good one.
We're going to do the wrap-up questions, which there's 2 that I saved for the end.
Okay, go.
Is there a chronological usual path when creating an app from start to finish? I'm struggling with going back and forth. It's a gigantic waste of time.
Back and forth, which pieces, right? So here's the deal, is the progression of learning, the progression of building an application. This graphic and this graphic here are the 2 graphics. So forget this person over here. So you're here and you're building a solution and you progress in your skill set. So most beginners start out with a local file. Then they listen to me and say, Richard's not a total moron. Maybe I should put on a FileMaker server, and they buy a 5-pack, or they get the FileMaker developer subscription, which is a single server and a single copy for every, it's a single license for you to play with, okay? So it's running on a server, but it's really only you accessing it. Makes sense? The progression is you build it locally, then you put it there. Once it's on the server, you can still do development. There's nothing that you can do on this on the local file that you can't do when the file is being hosted. As you make edits, the file lives on the server. That when you save the changes, it saves it on the hard drive of the FileMaker server. But that's kind of that progression. If he or she has a better description of that.
I think they're talking about like when they're building a file, like where do you even start and how do you, because he's like basically saying that like, he's building the file, but he's bouncing. He's like, oh, I need a relationship, or oh, I need a layout here. Oh, I guess I need a button here. Like they're asking like, how do you even cohesively plan out a file so you're not bouncing constantly between spots?
Yeah, so this is where we start tomorrow in this conversation, to be honest with you. But the short version of it is that you're talking about there's two ways of building a FileMaker solution. You're going to build it. The fancy ways of calling this were like waterfall and spiral development. Okay, forget those words. Let me bring it down to like normal human terms. You're going to build a file organically. Organically means that as you're just building it, it grows in real time with the needs of you and your team in real time. So it starts off as a little piece. You're growing some plant, the flower. It starts off and it keeps growing organically and growing organically. You start off with something small and snuggly, and it gets bigger and bigger and bigger because requirements come in. If it seems like you're going in circles, that's the organic development process. That's kind of what happens. Okay. It's not necessarily bad. It just is. Listen, back up. The FileMaker platform itself is an organic construction. It was envisioned as a product called Nutshell back in 1987. I started working on it in 1990. It goes way the hell back, and every version is a build on top of the previous version. And that's why sometimes they have to go back and clean things up, or sometimes you like, why is it so disorganized, or this is kind of weird in FileMaker? Because they keep organically adding to it, but they don't want to break things retroactively. So they cannot break people. Like if you download FileMaker 23, the goal is that you don't break everyone from previous versions of FileMaker 19. That's the goal. It creates tremendous strain on the Claris engineering team not to break things retroactively. It's a big part of what they strive to do, is not cause people to freak out because they install a new version and all the reports they built don't work anymore, things like that. That's bad for business. So you want it to not be, so they need to build the product organically while being cohesive and not breaking things retroactively. So the other development process is where you know all the requirements up front. You go to a business person and they know all the requirements up front. They know where every button is, where every layout is, how the layout looks, the colors that are used, what are the fields, what the workflow is. They have it all out, not just in their heads. They commit it to paper. A lot of people talk. I know all of that. Okay, where's it in paper? Well, I haven't written it down. Well, if it's not written down, then how is you as a developer can build it cohesively? Like if someone could tell me everything they need up front, I could look as a professional engineer and go, we're going to build the tables, we're going to build the fields, we're going to start building structuring these layouts, we're going to start structuring these codes. What happens is people, you start building it, and your user says, say it'd be really great if this worked on Androids in Zimbabwe, okay? Because in the desert, we only have Androids. And so you're like, well, okay, now I need WebDirect. Okay, so WebDirect is part of FileMaker server, so we just can turn that on, but then I need to test it. And as I test things, some things are broke, don't work quite well with WebDirect because it's got little bit of differences in there. So then then you have to go backwards and unwind yourself and retroactively fix things. So this is this organic development versus knowing everything on the front end. It just is.
There is a interesting question. Since Go is free, wouldn't it be more cost effective for me to build a file on FileMaker Go instead of on Windows?
Okay, so FileMaker Go is free. Understand something very important. FileMaker Pro is Mac and Windows, and as we discussed somewhere, FileMaker Pro has two capabilities. It allows end users to access the solution. It also has a builder mode or development mode. Let's just call it that for now, okay? FileMaker Go only has this. There is no development capabilities within FileMaker Go at all. Zero. You cannot build in Go. You can only consume data. You can build the structure, build the system in Pro, and also consume the data. So it does both. Go and WebDirect are only consumers of the data. You can do data entry, take photographs, digital document management, edit data, type data in, run reports, print things out, but you can't design and build a solution in Go or WebDirect, which is the browser. WebDirect is a browser version of Go, essentially. They took the things they learned from Go and they built WebDirect after that. And so it's the biggest problem with WebDirect is that it lives in a browser. And so then all the little issues with Chrome this or Firefox this or Edge this or Safari this. How often do you get to a website and it doesn't work the way you think? And every one of us who've been around the block go, well, let me try that in Chrome or try it in something else, and it works there, okay? Same problem with FileMaker, right? So, yeah.
When do you use WebDirect over FileMaker Go?
I'm going to say we would use WebDirect over other clients if the client doesn't support Pro or Go at all. So Android devices or something like that, okay? You definitely use WebDirect. You'd also use WebDirect if you can't get the organization to install Pro or Go on your device. So you work at some agency or some government or some company where you don't have administrative access. Like on my Mac, I own the Mac, I can install it, I put the admin password in, and I can install an app. But if you work in an organization where they control those devices, you cannot run the installer. Oh, well, IT has to approve that. And then IT looks at it. What's FileMaker? What's Apple? We're not going to install that. I've heard that 100 times over 30 some odd years, hundreds of times. So the guerrilla tactic to get around the IT people, right? Guerrilla tactics. FileMaker is all about guerrilla tactics. So WebDirect allows you to run it in a browser and bypass all the IT shenanigans. There you go. So 2 answers.
We have someone in Twitch, which is Centauri, who's trying to kit out the cheapest way to have a FileMaker kit when you're doing. He's also doing nonprofit stuff. So he was asking is it cheaper to do Windows with WebDirect, or is it cheaper to do Mac with FileMaker Go?
So what happens on the cheapest way to get into this, if you're a nonprofit organization, go to a website called TechSoup. I'm afraid to type it in because I haven't gone there. All right, here it is. So this is software licensing for nonprofits. I would not expect to get 75% off of it, but you can go in here, find Claris or find Apple, see what you can do, but you have to register with them, buy it from them. That's the cheapest way. The entry-level position is 5 users. And if you're a legit nonprofit, not that you're someone and you're cheap, nonprofit, and you better have the 50C31, whatever official government paperwork to prove that you're a nonprofit. Go here. You folks are awesome. I greatly appreciate what you're doing. Tomorrow, we're going to dive into more topics, start building things at a basic level. I knew today was going to be very crazy because this should be a very simple topic, understanding the licensing and understanding this stuff. And unfortunately, it's one of the more difficult topics, the platform. And that's even after they solidified it. So last 2 weeks ago, when we have the FileMaker Unified Platform and the Unified FileMaker Platform, whatever you want to call it, this right here, all of us need to really have a pretty good grasp of this right here. If you don't have a good grasp, send an email to me, say, Richard, something about Livestream, ask the question. I will either answer it directly or we'll bring it back on the show tomorrow and answer the question. Support@rcconsulting.com. And that's it. Got a report of an individual up here who may be a FileMaker license. Well, it's potentially expired. Look at the back of that car right there. Looks like the FileMaker license has expired. Sir, I need you to step out of the vehicle. Sir, step out of the vehicle. Sir!